It doesn't matter how hard you work or how passionate you are or how positive your mindset is. You'll never be able to overcome your self-concept. In the last couple of years, I was reminded of the power of this idea of the self-image, this concept of ourself that we carry around that actually dictates our experience, and just how futile it is to try to outdo it with motivation and productivity and an over-efforting. I really understood this about 12 months ago, after about a decade of business development and entrepreneurial endeavors and successful consulting. I had cultivated a self-concept of capability. I was self-sufficient, that I was able to do anything, to create anything. And that had a lot of benefits and strengths to it, a lot of positive qualities. But when the global situation happened in 2020 and the lockdowns killed my businesses, I decided to take a very different direction in my life. I made a drastic change and I moved halfway across the world to a monastery for 6 months so that I could dive within myself and discover a more balanced expression of who I am. I wanted to uncover my true self because I noticed that I was bumping up against the limitations of this self-concept that I'd developed, and it started to feel less powerful and more constricting. So as I began to explore this introspection and self-inquiry, I discovered entirely different qualities within myself that started to smooth these hard and rigid edges. I recognized at the time that while these strengths and qualities that had served me in my entrepreneurial pursuits of the prior years, that they were now becoming crutches that I was using to try to fill a void of something that felt like was missing within me. I was going through quite a transformation at the time, and I really didn't even recognize myself. Those strengths and positive qualities that I once knew so well were starting to become dormant as I was using them less and less. I wasn't running a business at the time. I was living a very different life. And that was really helpful to uncover this other side of me, which I was unaware of. But as I came out the other side and I wanted to reclaim these strengths and embody these qualities again, I hadn't noticed that my self-concept had subtly changed over those months. I had become a whole new person, and those muscles that I'd developed seemed to have become atrophied. And that's when I was really reminded of the power of self-concept, because I tried to overcome that change in self-image by implementing new habits, practicing new behaviors, and motivating myself to take action in the direction that I wanted to go in. But the more I did this, the more friction I started to feel. I was trying to convince myself that I could outdo this image that had changed, and it was exhausting. Because I already understood that idea, but had forgotten, I recognized that I was just spinning my wheels, and that actually I really only needed to recontextualize and reformat who I believed I was. I didn't need to prove that I still had those strengths and qualities through action, through effort. I didn't even need to create evidence that it was still possible to be that version of myself. I simply needed to remember that that concept of me that I carry is the foundation for everything that I'm experiencing. And that's really when these new habits and behaviors become complementary. That's when they're operating in concert with this self-image, rather than trying to overcompensate for it. So I decided to pause and come back into alignment with who I knew I really was, bringing all of the strengths and qualities from the past and this newfound expression of myself into harmony and into balance, integrating all of these parts as my true self. I've never felt more in alignment, and I've never experienced a more effortless way of being. I no longer feel like I need to overcompensate for something that feels is missing or is lacking. And it's not because of what I did or what I was able to achieve. It was because I chose to see myself differently. It's easy to overlook this and think that it doesn't have any significance or that it won't make a difference. But I promise you, it makes all the difference. Everything in my life has become more streamlined, less resistant, and all because of a simple internal shift. So before you try to become something more, I'd encourage you to look within and see who you believe you are, who you're framing yourself to be, that self-concept that you're carrying around in your day-to-day life. Examine that, inquire into that, and then reshape that. And from there, aligned and inspired actions will take place. That path of least resistance starts with your self-concept.